Greetings, music lovers. Welcome to another episode of the Raga Room with Deepa Joshi. Dhrupad is one of the oldest and most traditional genres of Indian classical music. Its origins can be traced back to the ancient times with a rich historical and cultural significance. Dhrupad is characterized by its focus on devotional and meditative aspects with a strong emphasis on maintaining the purity of notes and exploring the intricacies of raga. The austerity and profoundness of this art is rather unique, and we are thrilled to be in conversation with one of the leading artists of Dhrupad in the contemporary times. Please welcome Pelva Naik to the Raga Room.
Pelva Naik is one of the leading young Indian classical vocalists and exponent of the ancient genre of Indian classical music tradition named Dhrupad. With an outstanding and ongoing stage career in India and internationally, her work is inspired by her passion for rediscovering ancient sounds and her deep interest in historically informed performance practice and teaching. Pelava hails from a family of artists and educationists. She has been trained in the Dhrupad style of vocal music under the eminent Dagar School of Indian Classical Music. She began her training in Dhrupad at the age of 17. She is a disciple of legendary Dhrupad maestro, Ustad Zia Fariduddin Dagar. She has also received able guidance from Rudraveena exponent Bahauddin Dagar. In her music, Pelava endeavors to adhere sincerely to the unique traditional elements that the Dhrupad form offers. At the same time, she is known to strive and cultivate fresh characteristics that are personal and distinct. Alap, the slow and intricate elaboration of a raga, is the hallmark of Dagar school of Dhrupad music. She takes distinct interest in the exploration and formation of raga in its most personal and uncharted features. Pelava believes teaching music, sharing and upholding the sense of liability that comes with it is what keeps the process of evolution constant in craft and in life. She is one of the most acclaimed and admired young Dhrupad teachers today due to her eloquent, easy manner and natural ability and passion to relate with every individual seeking to learn and listen to the raga music across the globe. It is with great pride that I welcome Pelva Naik to the Raga Room.
Namaste, Pelvaji. Thank you so very much for coming to the Raga Room. And I cannot tell you for how long I've been wanting to have this conversation with you.
Namaste, Deepa. It is such an honor and always a pleasure to be exchanging these kind of conversations. And I'm really, really glad that you thought of me.
Why not? And, like I was just telling you a few minutes ago, things happen by chance encounter sometimes. And although at that moment it may seem like a chance encounter, it really is not, because there is subterraneanly, there is something that's happening that's bringing these forces together. And personally, for me, I have a very deep calling towards Dhrupad. I may not understand the intricacies of it or the technicalities of it, but the call it makes to your heart is very real. The connect that happens is very real. So in that kind of a mental framework, when I happened to watch your performance at the Darbar Festival, of course, it was on YouTube, it just took me to another space, and I felt like you were owning the show. You were owning that space. psychological space, and by owning it and by making it your own, what you were imparting to your audience, to the listeners, and to everybody who watches it was just something, a part of you came to all of us. So and having said that, I do want to begin with the fact that you went to J. Krishnamurti Foundation, you studied there, and at the age of 17 you had a bond with your gurus, that Fariduddin Dagar Sahab. So would you like to take us through these experiences? I would definitely, to somewhere in the conversation, want to talk about the philosophy of Krishnamurti Foundation and your experiences with your guru. But if you would like to.
Yes, sure. Well, first of all, you've been very kind. That it's the way you are really praising my journey and my work. I've definitely been fortunate, first of all, to really have had the path, what you just explained right there in front of me. Of course, walking on that path is something that one has to do on one's own, but it has a lot to do with that I had these methods of education right there, and I was kind of I was encouraged into it, with a lot of support and a lot of insight by people around me. So that's one very major factor that really is participating in this my journey, my earlier journey. I'm talking about when before I met my teacher and after I met my teacher. So yes, the school is one of the major, major instrument that really allowed me to go ahead with this crazy experiment that everyone thought that I was, about to take off when I was a teenager, of just doing Dhrupad full time. So yes, and then when I met my teacher, Ustad Zia Fariduddin Dagar, when I was in the school itself. So I met Ustad Sahab when I was in the school. So, but as if someone asks me what made you choose this path, what made you choose this style and this music, I ask myself, I mean, I really don't have an answer to that, because sometimes there's no choice and you don't look at it separate from your journey. So for me as a young person, everything was kind of connected. There was no sense of separation, that this is music, that this is a learning, this is a separate subject which you have to pursue independently, or it is a skill-based thing. Something that gave me great sense of joy is what I always found myself being involved with. And I was fortunate to do so. That I didn't have that kind of a mindset, or I was not really being conditioned as a young person to have a mindset where there is separation, that you're being given 5 choices and then you have to make a choice. So it just happened that I was this extremely curious and passionate young person who just loved to sing anything and everything, not necessarily classical music. Raga music really deeply interested me from the childhood. So yes, raga music, what we call classical music, was an integral part of my my life as a young girl. But I just loved singing. I just when I sang, it's like some children love to play sports. So like that, I just loved singing, and it just gave me another dimension, to my limited little life. I always felt like I was you beyond your body. As a young person, to feel like that, it's something very special. So it was not something you could stop me from going into. And that's how I got into, learning the music. So I would learn it from whoever would teach me. Like I've told so many people that it happened to be Ustad Zia Fariduddin Dagar.
Wow.
If it was anyone else, if it was Begum Akhtar, I would have done ghazal and thumris. If it was Gangubai Hangal, I would have done khayal. It happened to be, and I'm giving these big names because Ustad is, of that stature of a maestro. So that is something that I'm really, really fortunate, and I always thank my stars for that. But apart from that, in terms of genre, I think it's just something that, made me sing with joy, I would choose. So Dhrupad came in like that. But then I got hooked to it also because of its elements of great detail, going into the depth of something. That is something that I always constantly found myself involved in, whether it is nature study, whether it is drawing, painting, or the philosophy of Krishnamurti for that matter. So as a young person, we take philosophy in a very different way. We take it as a way of our life. Later as adults, we are kind of we put ourselves into that mode that, oh, it has to be taken as a way of life. But as a young person, it's done very naturally. That time you are not very intellectually aligned to look at it separately and kind of philosophize it. So I think the philosophy of Krishnamurti in my early years um, kind of drew me to it was this quality of going into depth of something. Same thing which drew me to Dhrupad, where you're going into the depth of sound, the form, the element of it, the nature of the rag. So that's one thing. Another parallel thing that I can think of is that, like Krishnamurti says, truth is a pathless land.
I'm sorry, I did not. Truth is the path?
Truth is a pathless land. That's what
Truth is
Krishnamurti
is
has.
the pathless
Truth
land.
is a pathless
Absolutely.
land.
Yes, yes.
And this is very layered sentence. It has a lot of meanings hidden in it. And that kind of resonated in my subconscious. That means that it is full of freedom. If you're trying to search it, whether it's an existential search or whether it is search in the artistic dimension, whatever it is so free if it is pathless. So with this philosophical background, I went to my Ustad. And that gave it a very interesting sort of dynamics to my learning, to my relationship with my teacher, who comes from a very so-called conservative tradition. But actually, what Krishnamurti is trying to say and what maestro and a tradition like Dhrupad has kind of, been practicing in a very subconscious manner is something very similar. It's just that the socio-cultural aspect of the two were very different. Here, there is individuality. Here it is, you're a young person, and it's always being spoken in the context of an individual rather than any gender, gender nuances, uh, which are more evident in a traditional system like Guru Shishya Parampara, under which I learned. So these were the things that kind of drew me into it. I went into the traditional method of learning in a Guru Shishya Parampara under Ustad Zia Fariduddin Dagar, but in a very, very, kind of open manner, and a lot of definitions of sort of conventional respect and conventional adab and all that were understood from in a very, very different manner, So, and I think that brought a sense of great intimacy for me with my own self as a young person trying to understand this giant of a genre called Dhrupad. So Yeah, well, I mean, it's been an interesting journey. Now that I look back, I'm able to make sense of, how the whole path has been charted in that sense.
Very true. First of all, the correlation. I mean, as a young person, philosophy is just philosophy. It really doesn't have much of a
Mm,
meaning because we're just starting out to explore, and there's really not that much because as we grow, we are able to correlate our life experiences and we are able to observe what is happening in our life and
mm,
apply a sort of a third person's view into our own experiences by not really judging it, by looking at it from a third person's perspective,
mm,
what one is going through. I think that is also one of the that is one of another things that J. Krishnamurti was always talking about was to just look at it to observe
mm.
and do it without judgment. And that, like you
Yeah,
said, it gives you a lot of freedom to interpret it in a way
yeah,
that makes sense world at
yeah,
large.
yeah.
And when you were also talking about the Guru Shishya Parampara, where you were in a traditional setup where you were
Mm,
actually learning, where you were with your Guru, but at the same time, the comfort that you had in your being in that system gave you the ability to be yourself, to explore yourself,
yeah,
which yields to the freedom of expression in your art.
yeah, yeah. And self-inquiry, the meaning of self-inquiry, I could kind of practically apply and kind of figure it out in the other opposite so-called conventionally traditional setup of learning, which was very interesting. That how you constantly can be questioning something, you know, without distorting or disturbing the dynamics of hierarchy or anything like that. You're just constantly inquiring it, you're constantly questioning it in order to get into the depth of it, and there is no one single authority, so to say. So, guru is authority in a very metaphysical way. That's what something that I understood. It is he or she has been put in a position which is higher, so to say, is not in order to subordinate or in order to kind of make you smaller as a learner or a student, but in order to sort of exchange it in such a way that it's like you're like a waterfall. You're just there to give. There's a gravity to it. So you whatever you're giving as a teacher is kind of fallen, it's given down to you, exchanged down to the younger person, so that the younger person can kind of receive it, as a container. So it's very subtle, and somewhere, of course, the social cultural aspect can muddle it if the individuals are not really um, ready to be evolved to understand it. So I think I could understand that aspect, that a guru is not an authority, or a person who is older than you, person who is more experienced in terms of the skill and knowledge, is there as this kind of a great, you know, how would I say? Mm, it's like the sun.
It's a
Just
guiding
like
force.
it's a guiding force, absolutely. And this is something that this was also constantly at the back of my head, that mm, I mean, of course, I was not always referring to the philosophy of Krishnamurti, and kind of doing this sort of a comparative process. But I think these two elements coming together was something very interesting and rare to happen in a setup, in an outfit where you are, in a traditional uh, at ambience learning in such a remarkably intricate art form.
I think that's
So,
exactly why it's a cosmic connection because
mm,
when the right guru finds the right disciple and when the right disciple finds the guru, and
mm,
I think a lot of times guru just teaches by being oneself without actually teaching. The
yes.
art form is there, what we are there
Mm,
to learn is there, that that is a given, that is what we have gone to learn. But by being who they are, by conducting themselves in a way that is very natural, I think we have like we underestimate the capability of our own capability of absorbing things that are very real. So when a person emits something with all authenticity and being real, it actually transmits. So when
Absolutely.
these are the things that we pick up, and these are such profound things that shape us and evolve us. And like you said, there is no one person or a philosophy that we refer to, but these are all collective experiences that make us who we
Mm,
are, and kind of again yields to your self-expression, which
mm,
is art, which is Drupad. So I
mm.
mean, very that is exactly why we feel what we feel when we listen to your music. And just taking back, just going back just a little bit, just so that our viewers get to have a background of Drupad. If you could just take us into the history of it, and
Mm.
how is Drupad different from Khayal?
Yes, so it is how I have understood it and what I have, received as part of conversations, observations, and also, from my teachers. And what I understood now as a teacher and a musician, it is the first word that comes is it's a tradition, of course. Drupad is a tradition of the musical, style. And when we say tradition, it simply means that it is a vidya, it is a knowledge, it is a vidha, जिसको बोलते हैं in Hindi, which has been passed on by from generation to the other generation by masters and musicologists and musicians through centuries. So it is a style of music. It is a tradition which has been passed on uh, since the time of, you can say, the evidences are found in the 11th, 12th century. And I would say that it is a style of music originated in mainly the northern plateau of the South Asian subcontinent, I would say. Not just, I would not use the word only India. India happened much later. So this is a South Asian subcontinent we are talking about, which is starting from, we can say Kabul to Indonesia. That entire South Asian subcontinent. And it kind of, the seeds took place of this art form, this musical genre in those times, and it has been evolved through the socio-cultural changes in the South Asian subcontinent. So what you see, of course, right now, it is being nurtured and it is being practiced in the mainly the northern part of the Indian subcontinent. So it is of that level of it holds that history and cultural influences, polity, so because the kind of patronage that musical traditions needed, it really, I think Drupad has been one of the most fortunate, especially the Dagar school of Drupad has been one of the most fortunate traditions which got that kind of patronage to really flourish. So it is a tradition, and the origins, you can say, the inspiration of it has been from the Chandagaikis of the Samvedic traditions. Though I would not say that it is a Samvedic music today, because Samvedic music is ritualistic music. It has it is chanting, like what we, see, the ritualistic
Chandas.
chanting is remarkable, the chandas, yeah. But it, I think, must have been inspired. There has been inspiration from it. And the musicians of that time must have drawn inspiration from the Samvedic Chandagaiki and then evolved it into a genre of artistic expression, which they then finally kind of managed to evolve and put it into a grammar based classical style. which is Dhrupad. So one of the major inspiration is the Samvedic Chandagaiki, but I would say that apart from that, a whole lot of influences also went into evolving Dhrupad to to kind of create it what we see it today as. Like, for example, there's been definitely folk influence of the people of the land, not just the imperial influence. Of course, the imperial influence also took it, because people of the land, like, for example, using Brajbhasha as in the composition, poetry. Now, Brajbhasha is not an imperial official language. So during the times of the Mughals and later the Rajput patronage, Brajbhasha really came into very strong use in Dhrupad compositions. And I mean, there has been whatever, and India, for example, India has had so many influences from all over the world. So a genre of Dhrupad somewhere represents that diversity. So it was influenced by all kinds of languages that came to India, all kinds of cultures that came to India, spirituality, spiritual aspects of it. So coming to spirituality, if I talk about the element of Dhrupad, I can simply say that it is a modal music, which is raga music, raga-based music, but a very minimalist approach. And that's where it stands apart from, say, a genre like Khayal. So minimalist in the sense that it is a syllable-based grammar. If you have heard Dhrupad Alap and Dhrupad recitals, there are these syllables which are used, like Rina, Ranana, Teta, Ranana, Tara, Nalana. So this grammar is something very old. And this sort of, I can say that must have been inspired from those traditions of the Chandagaikis and the Samveda, and where it is a sort of an abstract form of syllable-based abstract form of grammar, and it is. And why abstract? So people will ask that, but why abstract? What is the purpose of abstract in a musical tradition, in a sound-based structure? So I think what I see now as I begin to understand and practice this music, I think what it accommodates is that this going into depth of something, so it's like you have this very minimal sort of a container. It's very austere, I would say. Minimal is not the word used, but it's so austere that it doesn't have the other sort of no other interventions. But
you only have 7 notes.
No intervention of shabda, no intervention of so-called emotive poetry. You can go into the emotions, but then go beyond it. So it is very, it's like you're left with nothing but to go into the depth of the raga, because you have the syllables which are abstract, which are not really containing the baggage of any meaning. That's one thing. Another is also the in technical terms, these vowels, these syllables, they are very primal. So it also allows you to really explore the most primal depth of sound, as well as your own expression and emotion. So again, very austere. And again, coming to technicalities, these syllables are very flexible. So you can fold them, you can stretch them, you can bend them, almost like even the words and technicalities, that terms that we use when we are teaching, they're like almost like that, of the same as sculptors, very material terminology, like, oh, bend it, or break it, or mold it, or like blend fold it, things like blend it, yeah. So it is very, very flexible. These so that means that what happens is that raga also becomes very, very big, and that's why they say Dhrupad mein raag bahut hi bade hote hain. Why do they say that? That's because not because Dhrupadiyas are more knowledgeable. There's nothing like that. It's not like that. It is because it's like you have a you have a 10-geared car. You have a machine which is, you have tools, you have a lot of tools, because you can really magnify into sound through these syllables. I always take a long time explaining this, glorify this kind of meaning of the syllables, because that is the main magic key that Dhrupad holds, the genre of Dhrupad holds, especially the Dagas school of Dhrupad, where alap is its hallmark, where its main forte is alap, the slow alap. So yeah, that's Dhrupad genre, which has kind of you can see that today. And I think this is something that I, as a young person, I feel very kind of encouraged to say it, is that it is, I would call it a contemporary genre. I mean, because what is contemporary is something which is thriving in today's time, in modern times. And I think that if someone like me, who's in my 30s and I'm the youngest disciple of my teacher, passed away in 2013 at the age of 82. If I'm able to sing it and see it evolve and see its intricacies as it is, and even more evolved, and I can see it evolving in the future also, then these are the traits of a contemporary tradition. So it is very much thriving and alive. We all as musicians, we will pass on, but if it has stayed on even after passing of musicians, and if it's still thriving, that means it is something which is very modern, which is very timeless, which is very contemporary. So yes, one uses words like ancient tradition, old, but at the same time, it is also very, very timeless, very modern, and very, very freeing and very contemporary in its nature.
And I see, I resonate with everything that you have said, and I just want to decode it little by little. First and foremost, we had one of the artists that came to the Raga room, and he was talking about an archive and a repertoire theory. So he says today's repertoire can be tomorrow's archive. So this what you just talked about, how being contemporary and classic, it has been a classic, but it's contemporary. And actually, I want to also get into it just a little bit. What you learned from your gurus, the authenticity of that was preserved, and you have learned it in a way that you have the core of it. Now it is your responsibility to pass it on to the people that you are teaching, the younger generation who will learn from you. Getting into it just a little bit later, but also like when you were talking about the syllables, and I really resonate with it, every bit of it, although I have not learned Dhrupad, but just probably one or two compositions, but I have not learned it. But when you talk about the syllables, I think it just places everything in the right places. It just feels secure. You have those syllables, and now you've laid the foundation, so you can build on it. You can so you were talking about getting into the abstract. It's like the unheard. You get into the unheard mode. So you are in this space which gives you the ability to expand, to make it your own, to get into it as detailed as possible. And I think even what you were telling is that you have like these boundaries. You only have 7 notes in any music anywhere in the world. You have 7 notes, but with the right tools and structure and what you were talking about, a 10-geared vehicle, using your imagination, using your experiences, using the tools that you have, the power that you create from what you have within the boundaries, that can be of such magnitude. It can reach infinity. And that is the space, I think, either a listener or a musician will feel like
Mm.
this is it, this is my divinity, this is my God, this is what I have achieved, and it feels like, okay, thank you God, you've given me everything, I this is all I needed, I appreciate it. So
Mm.
very, very nice to hear that. And I also feel like Drupad is very meditative. You're able to get into it very easily, and
Yes.
certain instruments yield to this meditation. So, if you would like to talk about certain instruments which go well with Drupad, then why is it that we feel like we can settle, the calmness comes in when we are listening to Drupad music?
Yes, it's very interesting. This I mean this everyone always talks about the meditative aspect of it. When after the concert or when people come to learn and all that, they always say it's very meditative. And as I started teaching, this terminology started coming to me. Of course, as a when I was learning with my ustad, it was for me. It was. I didn't go there because it was meditative. For me, it was like it's so
Learning.
joyous to sing
Yes.
this and the details and magnifying something. It was more like a sport for me, honestly. But then I started thinking that why is it? What is meditative music? Why is a certain music meditative, more meditative, and certain music say more energizing or say more stimulating and or noisy, so to say? Why are these definitions? And with Drupad, technically, yes, I feel like it goes into that zone of meditative, because when you say meditation, something centers you. There is a center to it, and then there is a periphery. So it's very circular, it's very centering. It is something which kind of takes you to your
Core.
I would say subtle breath. Yeah, core, subtle breath. You start feeling your pran. You first, you kind of come back to yourself. So it is very centering. And it has again to do with its, of course, the grammar and the way raga is approached. The raga is not approached just on the melodic aspect, but it is approached, in terms of its swarup, its in inherent characteristic. And I like to explain it that, okay, here we are looking at raga like a person, and a person is not just the outside, the outfit or the color or the voice or the name, but it is so layered. We are all such complex people, so raga is also very complex. And this kind of approach then puts it into magnifying into the raga through the help of these syllables and going into the center of it. So because it kind of always um, adheres to going into the center, going into the depth of something, it naturally falls into that sort of a meditative aspect for the listeners, not always necessary for the people who are producing it. It's a different process. You're not always feeling meditative, you're churning. It's like sometimes you're quite into a very different kind of a zone. It's like churning, or it's like cooking. Sometimes cooking can be so chaotic, but you can produce something which is so calming and soothing. So it
Yes.
is like that for me. And so it is also, it's nice to understand it. I also understand it from the Western perspective a lot, because I have a lot of people, audiences in Europe, a lot of students who come from the West, and they come also because of this aspect, that it is so centering. It makes me feel very calm. It is also kind of, I go into this sort of a zone which is very, very quiet and meditative. And a friend of mine told me that, Pandit Ravi Shankar once went to John Coltrane, who was the jazz maestro. And jazz, how it is like rebellion, and it is revolutionary, it is asking hard
Improv.
questions, it is not modal, it just goes all over, it explores all octaves in a crazy manner. It's extremely intricate again, but it is not meditative. It will shake you up. It will not
Yes.
put you back into your that kind of a center. It will put you into your center, but in a very different way.
Yeah.
You feel like shouting, you know. So here you don't feel like shouting. People go to sleep in a deep sleep, you know. So John Coltrane asked Ravi Shankar that why is your music so happy? You know, it's a happy music, and in a modern term, if I would say, it's a happy music, happy in a very in its more in its very core meaning, you know, that it makes you feel like, okay, everything is in order and everything
Satchitanand.
is safe, huh? Things are safe, and you can, because they are safe, now you can travel inwards. Because if you don't feel safe, you can't sit down cross-legged and travel inwards, you know. So it had a kind of an irony to it also, that question of John Coltrane, that because he came from a, you know, a lot of expression of suffering and pain for his community and for his race and for his people and so many social issues. So this music, because it has never been associated directly with a purpose, so to say, that okay, this is a social or a revolutionary purpose or so anything like that. It is very zen, it is very minimal, and it is very austere in that sense. And that's how it kind of, you know, you can say it is meditative. So yes, so that's where, you know, it's very interesting to explore this aspect of meditation rather than just a kind of putting it out there and creating this kind of a social outfit of it without questioning it, that why is it meditative. So after one explores that, I started feeling like, okay, but can it be more real, you know. So at this point of time in my work, I feel like, yes, it is very minimal, it is modal music, it is very meditative, it puts you into center at least as a listener. But can that also be, can we go even beyond that and make it even more real? Can a raga reveal sides of it which is darker, which is more where there is suffering also revealed? Because in today's times everything is so complex, it's not just, you know, very happy so to say, like John Coltrane said, it's not always happy. So can we also through Dhrupad, because here you're going beyond emotions, you know, it's not very emotive, it's not like bhajan is extremely emotional, you can cry and you can say words and explain it in words and compose it in poetic format. But here you have the rag swaroop and you have the syllables. So how do you do that? So that's the journey, and I must tell you that this form has the potential to reveal that as well. But I think those aspects needs to be explored first in the individual, you know, and kind of break the whole social and socio-cultural aspect that is being kind of you can say put on it in order to sort of keep it, you know, as it is meditative and happy. So I'm trying to go beyond that and not just kind of keep it to that limitation of keeping it only meditative and happy, through that vehicle of, you know, some a medium which is very centering, which really brings you to a state of joy and happiness. Can we also be more real, and can we also be explore the idea of suffering, the idea of, you know, mm, truth in its most where you face your fears.
Very raw form.
So yeah, in a very raw form. So it is challenging. It is challenging with this form, but I'm also trying to explore that because that makes me feel more real as a human being. Otherwise, you know, it is so comforting, this music. I mean, not in terms of practice and all that, but it can get very comforting, you know. And then from that comfort, where as a musician you go into limitation, you know, no. And I don't want to do that, you know, don't want to limit myself. That okay, because it can be extremely comforting, and it can be extremely, you feel like, oh, you have, when a raga really reveals itself in its most intricate form, you feel like you have reached somewhere, and I'm scared of that. I don't want to
I'm
feel
hearing
like
you
I'm,
every moment. I'm hearing you,
you
and
know.
it's
So
makes so
yeah.
much sense. And I'm thinking like it's your thought process is so elevated. First of all, because you are in a form of music that is transgressing everything, that is going into the
Hmm.
abstract, that is exploring the unheard. But again, even there, when you find your comfort zone, you're
Hmm.
happy where you are. You have
Yeah.
achieved your expertise in that particular
I haven't
level, and
achieved it, and I haven't really achieved that. But yes, you kind of start seeing, that okay, this is what it is all about.
you get
And
comfortable. So how do you push
it's
yourself
comfortable. It's
beyond?
also your lifestyle. Like, we are privileged people, I mean, so I don't want to close myself down, especially in today's time and at the age that I am. We're young people, so that also challenges it. Doing Dhrupad, where it can be so, it can put you into that place, where you are just exploring the beyond, and you see, you walk on the streets, you see the hierarchy, and you see how privileged you are. So I like to be real in times like this, otherwise it can make you feel kind of like, very, very, very limited,
Limited.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So,
it's actually the process of self-discovery or the process of working on oneself
hmm,
and to unlayer everything that we have within us
hmm,
is, in a
yeah,
way, also like the more we know of ourselves, we can have
hmm,
the influence on people
yeah,
who are actually
yeah,
watching us. And as a guru, when you're teaching, just the
hmm,
fact that you're striving, you're trying to do something more is enough for your students to see you go
hmm,
through that transformation, to
yeah,
observe the transformation,
and
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 that goes to
absolutely,
them.
yeah, and it also kind of somewhere, really, kind of confirms the fact that this genre is open enough to really incorporate individual quest, and it is not limited to only a certain tradition and socio-cultural aspect of the land that it comes from. It can really accommodate the individual journey, in any time. It doesn't always have to be imperial times when there was patronage and the ecosystem was so one and so like accommodating. Today it is not like that. Today the musicians are on their own, in a way. We don't have a maharaja giving us gold coins every month to kind of just sustain ourselves, and we're like at complete leisure to just explore and just pass it on to our teachers, I mean our students and our children. It is not like that. It's a very modern contemporary time of upheaval and a lot of interesting sort of a shuffle that
But
goes
you
on
know that
around it.
actually one can get into a completely different path here when you think about patronage and
Hmm.
how important is patronage to art. Back then,
Hmm.
during the imperial days, we had the Maharajas, and for whatever, the musicians gained a lot by getting by
Hmm.
patronage. But now, in the paradigm shift that has happened, um,
Hmm.
now when you're putting something out there, when you put your music out there or your dance, or social media has
Hmm.
so many ways in which we can project
Absolutely.
ourselves. But
Yes.
again, this is something that is, I keep thinking about it a lot, and every human being has a way of self of expression, and
Mm,
everybody has a medium to do that, be it music or be it painting, be it whatever. But
mm,
that again, in a form, is patronage, because when you are putting things out there, you're seeking validation, and your
mm.
authentic self is what gets you validation. When you just do it for the sake of doing, it just
Mm,
goes into that, that the black
absolutely.
hole. Nothing comes out of it, leading to more
Mm,
discontentment, questioning
yes.
about oneself,
Mm,
going in a space that does not have direction. But how
mm,
important is for us to find our core and to put content out there that is very authentic, so even when you gain
mm.
patronage, they're seeing it for what it is, and they're
There
seeing it for
is the
how real
challenge.
it is.
There is absolutely, which is true, which is true. But it's just that you are in that ecosystem nowadays.
Yes.
You are in a community of people who know, without really, you don't have to really convey that. But here now, it's very interesting that you are, the social media is there, of course, which is a great fortune, for people of today's, of musicians of today's time. But what I'm trying to say is that in terms of your expression, like you have this complex backdrop right now to really challenge your expression, your, the grammar, and really go beyond that, which earlier may have come in different ways, maybe personal life, personal, phenomenon that may push you to that. But right now it is very, very kind of fresh and quite vibrant in
It,
that sense to explore.
yeah, it's like a fertility of your mind.
Yes, which is a good thing.
It is a great thing.
Rags are, like I said earlier, they're like people. And you do have this kind of a relationship, friendship with different ragas, and it varies from ragas to raga. Just like people, it's like, you have your intimate circle, your family, and then you have your friends, and then you have people who are outside of that, and then you have people who you don't really want to always
Yes,
spend time with.
yes.
So I am playing with that. Like ragas are also sometimes, okay, you meet a raga and then you spend a little time, and then you're like, okay, wow, this is interesting, but right now it's not matching my element. Maybe after some time, or you spend a lot of time with a raga, and then after that you need a break for a month or two,
Right,
and you
right.
get back to it after maybe 2 years. It stays with you, but then after 2 years, when you get back to that raga, something has evolved, something has changed, you know. Then there are certain ragas at this point of time in my life, I'm like, okay, I've heard it, but maybe I can't really explore it. Maybe I need to gain a certain life experience. Something needs to cook with it. Then you pick it up. So, and then there are certain ragas which you are like, they're like close to you. They're like your best friends. They're like your intimate people, and you can really, you're at ease with it. And this happens also because of the your own nature. In certain ragas which really kind of hit it off, with your nature, your element. And of course, in Dhrupad we follow the jati system of the ragas, which is which has a very beautiful kind of a theory of its classification, where there are these five elements, of course, that we have: water, earth, wind, fire, and sky or ether. And it is believed in this jati system, which is the raga classification system of the ancient times, where they believed that there were five ragas which represented the five elements.
Oh, how
You know.
lovely.
And from there emerged the whole clan of the other ragas. So then they had their, each of them had their six consorts, their raginis. So each of these ancestor raga had their six raginis, and then from there they had their children, and that's why it's called jati system. Jati means tribe. So it's like, it's looked at like a community, like a tribe. So it confirms one's idea of raga being people, you
How
know.
interesting.
So yeah, because it's so complex, each person is so complex, and it kind of, you can understand why it must have been envisioned like that. So
And
for me,
everybody
that is,
looks up to a certain element. Everybody is drawn to a
yeah,
certain element that is their own. So,
exactly,
yeah.
yeah. So that's how it is for me in raga. It changes, but there are certain ragas which stays, and there are certain ragas which are in that place where you are like trying to really explore it and take your time.
You have your own
So
Raga galaxy.
absolutely.
How interesting. Oh my God. And
Yes.
we've been talking about music, but then we are also exploring so many things through music, and I'm totally loving this
Hmm.
conversation. And I can see how it's so adaptive of your music itself. And I
Hmm.
have completely enjoyed talking to you, Pelvaji, and looking forward to many more of your concerts and your music. And I'm sure even when you are teaching, when the students that learn from you, they're receiving so much more than just Dhrupad.
No, it's likewise. It's both ways, and it's my absolute pleasure that I am really fortunate to, practice what I love,
Yeah.
and that's the biggest gift that life can give you. That you're
How
able to do
interesting.
what you love to do. So
Absolutely.
it's both ways, and thank you so much. It was a lovely conversation, and it was lovely chatting with you.
Same here. Thank you so much for coming to the Raga Room.
Thank you so much, Deepa.
Dear friends, we hope you enjoyed watching this episode just as much as we did bringing it to you. We hope to see you in our upcoming episodes where the soul listens as notes speak. Thank you and have a wonderful day.